Hello, everyone. Yeah, now we start to talking about intelligent pipelines. What is intelligent pipelines mean? Now, this is a part of the personal project that we are working in. How you notice, we are a lot of speakers in this presentation, but we are only two real speakers. But other people is part of the team that is working in this little cell project, little group project that we are working for solve a lot of different issues into the different companies, customers, etc. My peer now is Aldo. Is part of the is founder of Rumi company. Is a entrepreneur and really visionary of robotics and AI.
Yeah, just to build a little bit on that. Good morning, guys. I'm Aldo Luevano. I'm founder of Rumi, and we are a artificial intelligence and robotics company. Our main market is Latin America, but we are expanding our business here in the States. It's important to say that we are developing an ROI first agentic platform. This is going to be our next product. So obviously we are using in our architecture Red Hat infrastructure, OpenShift. So that's why we have this partnership that we are going to talk in this conversation.
Yeah. Let me walk through about the what is the intention of this presentation. The idea is first introduce the context. What is the history about the CI/CD pipelines? How what challenge we have in this step by step for build application and deploy to enterprise or production stage. How works this architecture? How define this architecture? Um, I prepare for other tasks a little demo. In that case, only we talk about the architecture. We focus and go, go deep into the how to work the solutions and show some enterprise use cases and some lesson learned and suggestion that we have for the project. And if you feel interested after the speak or the meeting, you let find us and join us into this project. What is the evolution of CI/CD, the DevSecOps, intelligent pipelines? Now, there are a lot of different strategies for build applications. But one of the main challenge of the companies is deploy fast, deploy right, security. Now the security is one of the more complex stages into the pipelines or go to production applications. And in the history, we start with manually deployments. All of people, we have a lot of different engineers, some deploying application in different technologies, other build applications. The repository dependence errors happens in all of these stages. Then start to traditional software and automation pipelines. How means that? That we start to using tools like Tekton, Jenkins, Argo, all of these tools permit that we can automatize all of different pipelines and be right with less human errors into the process. But now we start to presenting the intelligent pipelines. That means we create or we are develop a little MCP that connect all of different tools for define and decide what different elements we need to integrate in our pipeline. Support us in the code revision, support us into the security health checks, in security infrastructure reviews, and support us deploy the applications in the production stage. Because we have different challenge during this process. Be fast, how I mentioned in the past, because all of different companies demands that you can integrate the every new version of the applications, not in months, not in years, even in weeks, or sometimes in days. You need to deploy new versions, or you need to create a fix of your application or your code in only some hours after one vulnerability is detected. No, the idea of these intelligent pipelines is support you or support us for detect these errors, detect if you have any incidents during your code process, and after you after deploy or commit your code on your code repository. No, currently our project don't have a connection with ADI, any like a developer hub or Eclipse. Currently, we start in the GitOps or GitLab structure. But the idea is after commit, the MCP have the control of your code to deploy to the production application. And one of the main stages is that our ACP connect with security health checks. And we define a different rules or introduce different rules and logs of all of different errors, CVEs, and different elements for offer really right security stage. And validate if your application crashing, if you have a right code designed, right elements in your code processing and in your develop processing. In that case, our MCP validate your process from commit to all of CI/CD stages. Now, how to works that? How to define this MCP? We define the static rules versus rules based on reactive. The MCP have different contexts about the how to works into the real life, how to connect with the other different elements, and we validate the first input and go the different or do the different matches with a database with vectors for validate if you are doing the right context, the right scenario, and what are you doing into the pipeline or into the code.
Just adding a quick comment on that, I think that it's important to see the value of this solution, right? Normally, as developers, you need to have a lot of skills in different layers of the architecture, you know, software development, software architecture, also the part of the infrastructure on cloud, on premise. So it's important that normally in the software development efforts, you need to have a huge team of different expertises associated with that project, right? So with this approach of the intelligent pipelines, we can delegate part of the effort to these third-party tools and focus our knowledge, our training in just the coding part. For example, if we are a developer, then then we can effort ourselves in order to learn more about software development or use new generation tools as NAN, for example, or all the stuff related to generative AI and agentic AI. And then we can delegate the deployment of our solution to these kind of third-party tools, right?
Yeah, and that is how Aldo mentions. Now, how many times do you have errors in your dependency repository? When you start to build your applications and the security team or the infrastructure team is responsible about the dependency tool or the dependency artifactory, and any dependence have errors, any dependence have fixes or bugs or anything. The idea of that is the MCP validate this before the build, and the same thing with the Git or any code tool that you are using for the code lifecycle, any repository, any image repository, because the idea is validate with Starrocks. Starrocks is one of the open source products that we are working in with, and validate the CVEs, the image base, dependencies, code, and do all of that before production deploy. And what is the use cases in security and delivery? One of the more important use cases that we present or we are using our project in is predictive vulnerability detection in your code, in your dependency, and in your images. How to do that? With Starrocks and SonarQube tools connected by the MCP tool. And when you do the commit, automatically the MCP go to your code, validate all of your code, validate based in different rules and different scenarios. Validate if you have cyclomatic errors, validate if you have hard-coded stuff, and when finished to review, offer you a report, and you decide if you can fix it or no. And go to the dependency repository, validate your dependencies are updated, are fixed, and are well for build your application. And go to the image repository and validate if your images are good builded, your base images don't have any error CVAs opened, and have the good security stuff in the security value. And real-time anomaly detection. What means that? Sometimes when you build any package, you download or you are using different dependencies, or you are using some instructions that cause errors in the real-time executions. The idea of the FTP is validate if you could be, not intentionally, do something of that in your code. If you do that, automatically the MCP detect that and send you notifications and stop the pipeline process. And you have the opportunity to fix that, or do apply the recommendations for that the tool apply these changes. And adaptive compliance validations. That is because after your deployment on first stage dev or Q&A, the MCP is able to validate if all of your integrated tests are running well, if your applications works like the use case mean, and you are ready for go to the production. And smarter incident response code. That means that if something happened in your production deployment or in your Q&A deployment, the MCP is connected by the logs, log tools, log collection tools, metrics tools, and validate if you have any error issues, and automatically send you some solutions for your code, some suggestion for how to solve these incidents that you have in production or Q&A.
I'm gonna give you an example. As I was mentioning, we develop a solution that is our ROI first agentic platform. And basically the core of this solution is to calculate the current TCO of a process, of a manual process for our organization without any automation, without artificial intelligence, right? And also the idea of our solution is that can calculate the future state of that process, okay? So this is so important because at the end of the day, in order to accelerate the deployment of our solutions with our clients, we are looking to give upfront, which is gonna be the ROI associated for that implementation. In this platform, we have a module that is our customer support model. And basically in this module, we can support any kind of deployment, even in premise or on cloud. We are making a takeover of the control of all the legacy systems, all the IT infrastructure of our clients. And basically, we're using intelligent pipelines in order to automate all the deployment associated with that packages in the IT infrastructure of our clients, right? Also, it's important to clarify that the application of intelligent pipelines is not only about infrastructure. You can use this in order to create a domain for your web page, website, also any kind of activity that you need to do in the back office or your IT department, right? So this is one of the components that we are considering in order to guarantee a strong ROI for our clients. But the reality is that we can extend these capabilities to other IT assets.
Yeah, and then how to solve how to start to doing the full solution. No, we are using agent, NCP. No, what means this? What is the difference about the agent and MCP? Agent, now is the tool that have the opportunity to take some decisions, to validate different elements, inputs and outputs. And or NCP have the capability to connect with third-party elements to get all of this feedback and inject to the agent. The idea of MCP is connect third-party elements and connect the different agents that we join together for do the intelligent pipelines. That is across the platforms, applications, security, and the idea is solve all of different stage elements or all of different stage errors that you can have in your pipeline process.
Also, adding to this point that is so important, in this moment we have a lot of buzzwords on LinkedIn about agentic AI, right? A lot of people are talking about agentic and they are AI gurus, you know. So, but the reality is that we need to understand very well the difference between MCP and agentic, right? For example, in our meaning, we are considering the implementation of NAN. You know about this framework that basically is a repository of different integrations already developed, right? That's the important thing. I believe that part of the main strategies in an architecture development is to avoid developing things from scratch and trying to reuse components that are already in the market, right? So in terms of these capabilities that we need to have in order to automate all the IT support, we are using a layer of NAN that is no code for sure. Obviously, we can use LangGraph, for example, or LangChain if we want to create a specific integration from scratch. But the idea is to use this repository of different integrations in order to reduce the time to market of our solutions with the clients, right?
Yeah, the main idea is don't reinvent the wheel. And that is the representation of how to work this strategy, how to do the project life cycle of MCP, or the current MCP. There are a lot of differences in lot of MCP that are built in commercials, in open source, yeah. But this is based on open source stuff, yeah. And the idea is we have the problem farming, that is pipelines, how to build applications, how to validate the security, the code, and how to suggest all of improvements in your code. And other main stage is connect with all of monitoring stuff, because the feedback is really important. You need to know that your code that you are deployed in production or in Q&A have errors, you have warnings, how to start to improve your code based in your log, in your feedback that you have. Other is data preparation. You need to validate that all of data, all of the elements that are defined for your security area are aligned in your pipeline strategy, because all of different companies, all of different people, all of different projects have a different layers in the security stuff. And join all of this together, how to work in deployment and integration strategy, how to start to testing different applications. For example, if you need any endpoint, any third-party element, how to this MCP try to connect with different Mockito elements, for example, and test all of different inputs and outputs for validate that your deployment is really good. Then we deploy the full model, connect with all of these third-party elements, and do the validating and testing stuff.
Yeah, also in a real world example, I believe that in this moment, all of us are using MCP, right? It's one of the main concepts on the industry right now. But the reality is that for some specific integrations, we don't have an MCP associated, right? For example, in our case, we are trying to take control of all the legacy systems in the organization. It's so common that we need to automate, for example, the migration of COBOL, of SIP to new architectures, but we don't have an NCP right now, an NAN, in order to interact with SIP, for example, right? In that kind of scenarios, we need to develop our own MCP implementation, and then we can expose that implementation for the whole industry following this open source strategy, right? That's why, as I was mentioning, the idea of this project of intelligent pipelines is to create a community with you guys, right? We are inviting you in order to create more functionalities for our project. In this moment, is in an early stage, but the potential that we have in this project is so big, right? So you can join us. Also, we have our GitHub repository, and then we can share with you more information about it, right?
Yeah, and why are you using DevSecOps in automating buildings? Yeah, the answer of this question is because now we need to reduce cost, reduce time for deploying all of different applications, do the predictive analytics of your application. That is really important, because currently the data now is the more important thing that you have in your company. The data now is the new gold. Then you need to find, or you need to work in the way to get the self-healing of your process, and do the proactive observability. Now, a lot of people think in observability. A lot of people think about, hey, I only need to say if something happens, but don't think about the proactive observability. Validate, okay, I have warnings, could be in next 5 months I have an error because I am causing an overflow because this application have lot of church into the code. Or we have context awareness because we are using a lot of different artifacts or dependencies that we are deprecated in 2-3 months. Or the dynamic optimizations. You need to validate if your code is well, align it to the security stage, align it to the best practice of coding, and adaptive security. You are fixed. You need to fix something in the future, and how to improve your pipeline strategy. Then, how to define this? We mentioned in the past, this is a deep focus in the static and semantic pipelines. How to work the traditional pipelines? You put the rules and run the stage over the different, run all of different stages and complete your pipeline. If something fails, your pipeline is stopped. The idea of our NCP is semantic pipeline that if something happens, you have the opportunity to rebuild, validate, get suggestions, and go to production.
And I believe that this is an important point, the data, right? Because in this moment we have a lot of demos on internet, POCs that you can automate a lot of pipelines, right? But the reality is when you are implementing these kind of solutions for a real customer, for an enterprise, you need to consider the data that you need to implement in your solution in order to automate this in a right way. For example, in the case of these intelligent pipelines, if you don't have a user manual, it's so complicated to train the LLM or train the artificial intelligence model that is behind the solution to execute the activities in the right way, in the right manner, correct? So that is important because at the beginning of every implementation, we need to request the access of this data to the decision makers, the managers of the IT department, in order to have all the information needed to train our pipeline.
Yeah, and now we are using the 4 reasoning patterns that we can introduce in our MCP, analogical, that is mapping all of different solutions to find the solution, find the how to solve the issue. Casual, triggering for the commits, for the injection of dependencies, etc. Deductive for the all of collect logs, and abductive for get all of feedback and taking decisions. No. The main goal of the architecture is validate that we have the cross-domain synthesis of all of these solutions, create correct self-correcting reasoning that validate that reasoning of the application is good. You need to know that this is aligned to the ethics of AI ISO 42001, that all of things or all of that happens with the MCP decision is human responsibility. No? And the cultural adaptation, abstract patterns, and contextual personality.
Yeah, just to add one comment on this, I believe that in real world scenarios, again, it's not just about the deployment in one infrastructure or one platform, right? You need to consider a multi-layer deployment. For example, in an architecture of an enterprise system, you need to consider the database layer, also the application layer, the machine learning layer. So we need to also take in consideration different components, different platforms and backend systems. That's why we need to keep an eye on this cross-siting deployment.
Yeah. I'm talking a little bit about how to work that in the ops or infra side. We are defining AI analytics that is agent and MCP, and go the feedback by the observability stuff, Prometheus, Thanos, Vector in that case, because we are using OpenShift for deploy that. GitOps tools, that is Argo, CD, Helm, and Tekton, and pipeline orchestration. CI/CD, sometimes Jenkins, sometimes Tekton. And production environment, now is OpenShift, and you can deploy over Kubernetes. And what is the full architecture of intelligent pipeline architecture? We are using the MCP client to connect source code. You can use all of these listed. And you can integrate a lot of that because, how to Aldo mentions, you can use all of different offers in the open source. Talking about CI/CD, Tekton and GitLab for us. In security, we are enforcing only SonarQube and Starbucks. That is the important. We are developed more, but currently we are only these two. And Ops, Kubernetes, and OpenShift. We deploy then the MCP servers, connect to the different APIs, and take the different decisions during our pipeline. No, that is the things that frameworks that we are using, Tekton, GitLab, for the main solution that we have. And connect with all of different clients that with policies, SonarQube, Starbucks, and AML. That is the current agent and NCP element. No, the base elements are Anthropic, NHN, LangChain. No, that is the full framework that we are using for create that.
Well, we have been talking about use cases, right? Basically, this implementation is for the customer support. But again, I believe that also for the development community is a huge asset that we can use in order to accelerate the deployment of our solutions. Again, I believe that I see a lot of value if I decide to be an expert in just one programming language. That, okay, guys, I know that nowadays it's complicated to be an expert in just one programming language, but you can concentrate your knowledge in something, right? For this kind of infrastructure activities, you can delegate this to these solutions like the intelligent pipeline tool.
Yeah. Then the conclusion is try to resolve the challenge in data quality that we have for all of different feedback that we need for improve all of these intelligent pipelines. And DevSecOps involving for the shift and left. The idea is try to build a really best good solution for create intelligent pipelines based in the new standards for Web 3.0, Cloud Native Foundation, and all of different standards like 12 factors in the past. And we need to introduce this tool for match correctly to the new era of DevSecOps stuff.
Yeah, just a final thought about it. It's like we need to consider the ROI all the time, because maybe we can automate this deployment using these tools, LLMs, agentic solutions. But the reality is that if the price of the solution is going to be much higher than our current DevOps team, nobody's going to use this kind of projects in the organization, right? So this is the only comment that I have to finish my presentation, my interaction with you, my friend. Thank you so much for the invite. But again, I believe that it's not related to AI first, it's related to ROI first.
Yeah, and one of the recommendations is start small and embedding in AI and into the workflow and intelligent pipeline. You try because this is a really good use case for the MCPs and AI stuff.
Thank you.
I know you have any questions.
So you were just telling about stressing more about the security thing that we have to include in the DevOps that becomes the DevSecOps. So you're talking about the SonarQube. So generally SonarQube is something that does only the static code analysis. So what are your thoughts on dynamic application scans, because that will be more helpful because it will tell where the application breaks. So what are your thoughts on dynamic scan application? Are you implementing that currently or something?
That is the main focus of that is that we are finding to integrate any IDA for connect with the MCP tool. Now we are working in that, but yeah, the main idea is try to work first with the IDE before the commit of the code. No, because yeah, if the code is committed and you have a brick applications, it's complicated for SonarQube. No, but now the main focus of the current solution is take the code, validate in SonarQube, and in the after SonarQube, MCP have a lot of different best practice of code. Not only the SonarQube rules that you put into the SonarQube tool. Then MCP validate the other best practice for legacy code and offer suggestions from now.
Just complementing on that, I believe that it depends of the maturity of the organization, because if you are a startup and basically you are not using a lot of guidelines and, frameworks, maybe it doesn't matter to have any kind of these security tools. But in the case of an enterprise that is in a high compliance, for example, also you can integrate different tools in your pipeline. It depends of the grade of maturity that you need to consider. In our case, we are CMMI 5. We have the highest maturity in software development, so for sure we need to pass different compliance layer and security layers in our deployment, you know. But I think that the main concept here is that we need to have an integration layer that you can use in order to pick any kind of tool that is in the market to guarantee this compliance that we have been talking about.
Any other question?